Hi, how's everybody doing? My name is Dolly, and
Dalle Garcia, thank you so much.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Sharon. You're so amazing. I've been watching you on social media for many years now, on Facebook and other LinkedIn, other social media platforms. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thank you for being on Sharon King Worldwide. I am Sharon May King, and I have the honor of having you on today. Della is the owner of Gold Crown Credit. Please tell the audience about yourself and who you are and what you do.
Definitely. Well, my name is Dolly. Like I said, I was born and raised in New York. My mother's from the Dominican Republic, so she immigrated into the US in the early 70s. And here I am. But growing up in the Bronx, I grew up in an apartment building, and I've always was curious about the world, and I've always saw that I had a bright future. So coming from a mother that's from the Dominican Republic, a lot of people will agree. People that have like parents that are from the Caribbean, they always stressing education. Like, you better get your education. You got to get your education. So that was like a big part in my household growing up. I have two sisters. I'm the oldest. So moving forward with that, I was outperforming in school because I'm like, well, that's my family saying if I get my education, then I can do big things. And since I've foresaw and envisioned a bright future, I was like, well, this is the way that I got to go, right? So I was always excelling in school. I skipped the 8th grade. I went from 7th to 9th. I went to college, got a scholarship. But I'm saying all of that not to like boast about my college experience, but everything that I've learned about finances and credit, a lot of it was not in school.
Mm,
Okay, so going to college, and I have an economics degree. You would think that finances, yeah, we learn about finances, but no one really sat there and taught me about credit. Not even my own family, because they didn't really understand credit. They always pay their bills on time, but how you can take credit and become very powerful with it, that's on a whole nother level. So I had to, I started learning a lot on my own, looking and reviewing credit reports, which could be, like a whole new language to a lot of people. When they see that, they're like, what does this mean? Like the three credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So I that's the company that I have, Gold Crown Credit. We help people with their personal credit. We help people understand how they can leverage credit. We build business credit, which is another, very important aspect of credit that most of us are not taught how to manage, how to use, and how it can help us in our everyday life. Even if you don't have like one client, you can have business credit. So, we'll review about that later on as we go on in the show. But yes, ask me any other questions. I mean, I have so much to say.
Let me ask you something. I know I was reading something in an article where the first time home buyers went from 620 for you to qualify. Now you have to have at least 650 to 700 to not qualify on being a first time home buyers.
And that all depends, because in different states, overall nationwide, we have like rates, and we notice that rates are low now,
Mhm.
considering it's a great time to buy. But how does that impact the person with credit? So of course, especially when you're a first time home buyer, there's many programs out there that you can take advantage of, like FHA. They got first time home buyer programs. If you were in the military and you're a vet, or you were a vet, you can also tap into that, into those perks. But like, for example, here in the state of Georgia, where I'm at, they have like the Dreamers program. So you can put as little as 3% down. The credit score could be 650. I know it varies, depending on who you are, because I've seen even people getting loans with a score of as low as 580.
Mhm.
So that depends. But as we know, everything is based on credit. Your credit is what determines, will you get approved to get a home? Will you be able to get the maximum amount of funding that you may need? Maybe or maybe not. So this is so important for us to open up and find out, well, where do I stand with my credit? And I encourage people not to be afraid, because I know that seems to be like, afraid to talk to other people about it. Oh, don't look at my credit, it's a nightmare. We've all been through some kind of setbacks in our credit, whether we know it or not. Sometimes you think you're in good standing, and until you pull your credit, tri-merge, which is all three credit bureaus in one report, which I'm going to also put it in the chat so that other people can see it if they want to go ahead and pull their credit, you know, after the show or whatnot, and kind of get familiar with what's in it, because that's going to determine, will the lender give you funding for your home? Will they give you funding for a car, get approval for a car? Are you able to get funding in general, a personal loan? Will you be able to get a credit card? Some jobs, some people that work for like government positions, they have to have a decent credit score because they would consider that as a prerequisite for the job offer. I mean, it gets that serious.
Right. Let me ask you a question. What advice would you give students and young adults that have so many credit cards?
And that's a great question because, well, you know, like I mentioned before, when I went to college, that's when I started getting, you know, offers for credit cards. I remember I used to live in a dorm in my first year, and I was just like, okay, I remember getting like one of those, like, you've been a pre-approved for a card. I think it was like $500 or something like that. I was like, what? Money? Okay, you know, but I didn't really understand like how that's going to impact me. So usually a lot of us don't, because either our parents, you know, it's very rare that our family would talk about stuff like that and how to help ourselves, or, you know, what to do when you've already, you know, maxed out all your credit cards and you have all these credit cards. So, you know, you got to come up with a plan. Like if you, most people are saying, well, let me file for bankruptcy. So most of my clients, they'll be like, oh, I have so many collections, I have this, I have that. Do you think I should file for bankruptcy? And I would say that that would be the last resort. Don't be so quick to jump to bankruptcy when there are options out there. And you have to be patient, because especially I tell my clients, like, if you decide to work with me, this is not a fly by night situation. We are in a process, and the process, it could take time depending on what's being reported, you know, who's reporting it. You know, you may have to go through more than one entity. So let's talk about the bureaus, the three bureaus that you're going to be pretty much familiar with your whole life in this society that we live in, because it's based on credit. Um, the three companies are, and I call them the credit mafia. They are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Those are the three credit bureaus, which are private entities, believe it or not. Many people think that they're somehow connected to our government, but they're really not. They're private entities, and actually foreign entities. So it gets even deeper, the rabbit hole with this.
Wow.
But they're the ones that control everything according to how this banking system works, and how are you going to get approvals to be able to make things happen in your life.
Mhm.
So ask me any other questions about that or anything else. I'd be more than happy to respond.
Now, as far as people applying for credit cards, what would be the best credit card for them to apply for if you never had a credit card before?
And that's a great question. I always, let's rewind it to our children. Like, we want to prepare them for the future. So like, I have a son, he's 11 years old. So I've already been working with him for his business credit. I know it's like, people are like, what? And I'll get into that. And I've also preparing him so that I can make him an authorized user on one of my cards. Okay, so
Yeah.
when he's a certain age, which is like 13 and on, then you can add them as authorized user, and he'll have a card in his name, which he can use and I can monitor, which will help also impact his credit. So that helps, you know, like let's say your daughter or your son, and you can do that as well. But you have to make sure that your credit is in good standing, because that you're paying that credit card on time, that you're not highly utilizing the credit card. Utilization. And let me explain what that is. So let's say the credit card company gives you $100, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to use more than 30% of the utilization. 30% is the ceiling, the rule, right? So that'll be $300 out of $1,000, right?
Mhm.
So you don't want to go over that, because then that's considered, okay, we gave you $1,000, but they really don't want you to use more than 300, because it makes you look desperate. They
Right.
really want you to stay within 30% or less,
Mhm.
Less than that, even better, because then that's only going to impact your credit rating in a positive way. So you have to be within those parameters, so then you can help your child. You can say, well, I'm going to add, profit, my son, into uh my credit card, so he can have authorized user. So any history that I have on that credit card is going to transfer over to his credit. So that's a great way to start helping your children develop good habits with their credit cards, so they're kind of like piggyback off of you and your credit card. All right, and you could do that with anyone. It doesn't have to be an offspring. It could be a spouse, it could be a business partner, a friend. In fact, tray line business is a huge business. Like, people sell their tray lines online now. That's a whole nother scenario, because tray lines are great. They can always help you build credit. It can always help you get over the hump. When I say over the hump, let's say somebody has a 620 FICO, and they're like, wow, Sharon, I really need something to help me get to the next level. There's other things you can do, but you could say, well, hey, I can make you authorized user on my Bank of America credit card. I have a limit of 25,000. I don't use it much. I'll
Mhm.
do that favor for you. And then you can add that person as an authorized user. Most people would say, well, wait a minute, don't they get access to my account? Well, not necessarily, but adding them on is only going to help them get that history reported onto their credit report. So it helps. It's like a way for them to get to the next level faster. But some people don't really understand how this process works. So what they do is that they eliminate all the bad things out of their credit. They get their credit restored. Then they go and say, well, I'm going to go buy all these trade lines. So they have 3 and 4 and 5 different credit cards of different people that they became authorized user. Now, that's okay. You'll see that the credit score will be impacted. You'll say, wow, my credit jumped from like a 600 to a 700, but none of it's yours. It's all you, just an authorized user. So that doesn't work either when you're trying to get funding from a bank. They want to see that you have some credit cards in your own name.
Right.
Those are called primaries. So I wanted to make sure that we discuss that, because there's been a lot of confusion in this industry with that.
Yes. And so what a lot of people don't understand, like you just said, you have to be the primary user of those credit card. Although you might have a trade line, and I just want to make sure you could correct me if I'm wrong. You still have to show that you have primary use of different credit card, different forms of credit.
That is correct. That is in your own name. So for example, since I do business funding, right, you have to also, and I come from like a mortgage brokerage background,
Mhm.
you got to kind of like look at your credit report from an underwriter's perspective as well. Because just because you have a 700 FICO does not necessarily mean you're going to get approved for things. And
Right.
that seems to be like the big light bulb in people's minds, because they're looking at it, well, I'm going to get my credit score to be that, but it's really the content in that credit report. So yes, it's okay to have authorized users. You can have 2 or 3 different accounts that are not primarily yours,
Mhm.
but you also need a combination of your own. And I have a lot of like resources that can help people, especially if they're trying to build their credit for the first time. There are lines of credit that they can get that are primary accounts that can put them over the map. And the combination of that with the authorized user, and of course time, because just because you start building your credit today don't mean you can go and buy a house tomorrow. You have to give those lines of credit some time, because a lot of underwriters are going to say, well, like to get business funding, for example, they're going to say, well, how long has they had this account for? Has it been more than 12 to 24 months? If you
Mhm.
had only a good account for 6 months, even though the score is 700, is going to say, well, their account is too young. They haven't had it for long enough periods for us to determine whether we can give them this line of credit.
Right. Wow. As far as credit card, what would be the best credit card to start with as a new user?
Well, I always, as you know, Capital One is always there to give people money, even if they never had any credit, which I think is great. There's other accounts. They usually start with 300. I've seen 500. That's not really a major impact on people that are trying to get, a higher lines. You want to get higher lines of credit, but how do you do that? And this is when I advise some of my clients, like one of the accounts that I advise my clients to get, which I'll also put into into the chat
Mhm.
that it's called New Coast. New Coast is one of the accounts that I advise my clients because they are a credit builder program. So it's you're enrolling into the New Coast, and you just got to buy like one thing, and it costs maybe like, with the enrollment fee and buying one item from them, maybe like 120 bucks, I'm gonna just say, which is not a lot of money. So that having that relationship with New Coast is going to allow you to get a $5,000 line of credit reported onto your personal credit. So that's huge. I mean, compare that to a $500 Capital One card. Having a $5,000 line of credit reporting on your personal credit, it's going to make a major impact, not only on the fact that you're getting a line of credit, but that you're getting a large line of credit. So that now, while that's working, right, then like 6 months down the line, or maybe 3 months down the line, now you can go and apply for a real credit card, and they'll say, hey, we'll give them $2,000 or $3,000 because you already have a larger line of credit. Now, if you did the $500, you may not get such a large line of credit. So it's all strategy. You have to know what you're doing when you're putting this stuff together.
Wow, that is so amazing. And I know you mentioned we'll put information in the chat for everyone to get in contact with you and in regards to what we're talking about and everything else. Now, for example, somebody have a credit score of 450, 450.
Okay.
What advice would you give them to start building up their credit where it needs to be?
Okay, well, 450 could be a lot of different things. I mean, is it that there's things being reported negatively? Are there any outstanding collections? Are there any lates? You know, one time 30, like if you have a credit card and or even a car and you pay it 30 days late,
Mhm.
that can impact your credit in a negative way. Like you could be paying on time. The minute you pay one time 30 days late, that can impact your credit in a big way. Over 100 points I've seen on some of my files, and I'm like, what happened here? Like, you know, that one time that you were late can impact your credit. If you go higher your utilization, like we were talking before, if you use more than 30% of what is required, the rule for utilization, that can impact your credit score in a negative way where it can bring it down. Do you have any derogatories? You know, are there any public records, which include judgments, taxes, you know, liens, anything like that. So these are the things. So it's, you know, it's not just like an easy answer. It's okay, what is impacting the credit? Or is it that we're just building, you know, just to build, like I mentioned, New Coast will be one of the accounts that I would recommend. Okay. Now I want to give a shout out to also those that are vets, because I do work with a lot of vets, and they are always have access to like credit unions, like Navy Federal Credit Union. So if you're just trying to build credit and you're a vet, I would say go to Navy Federal Credit Union, open up a savings and checking account, and then, you know, eventually apply for a credit card. You know, they're very lenient. They've gotten a little tougher over the years because so many people that are not vets somehow are able to get in and have gotten in, and they've kind of, you know, so they want to see that you're like using the checking account, that you're active with it. That's what I would recommend before you apply for a Navy Federal credit card. And they're only going to be looking at one of the credit bureaus, which is TransUnion. So that would be an advice I would give somebody that's a vet, or using the New Coast, which I'm going to put into the chat.
Very good. Now, you mentioned so many things. As far as derogatories or negative things that's on your credit report that have already been paid off,
Mhm.
what do one have to do, or what advice would you give one to do to get those off their credit report?
Like collections, you mean?
Whatever they have on there is already paid off and it's still going, it's still reporting on their credit report because the three major credit report have not received that information yet. Would you advise somebody, like when they pay off something, send it directly to the credit bureau?
Definitely. Well, if it's a collection, I never recommend anyone to pay any collections. That's number one. Collections, why are we paying collections? The third party debt collector is not the due holder in course. So most people would say, well, well, they're saying that I owe so and so, which was probably, you probably did. But now that is in new ownership, do you owe that owner, that new owner that is claiming the debt?
Right.
Perhaps not, you know what I'm saying? So not that I'm telling people not to pay their debts, but what I'm saying is, are you paying it to the correct party? All right, so that's the first thing. And if you decide that you don't want to fight the collection agency and you want to pay them and negotiate, because let's say that's the only thing that's stopping you from getting to the next level of purchasing a home, because some mortgage brokers would tell you, well, if you pay that collection off, then we can move forward, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes time is money, and we don't have time to negotiate and argue the matter. So
Right.
what I would recommend is, don't just be so quick to pay without any recourse. You need to say, well, I will pay this contingent upon you removing it from my credit report. And I need you to put that in writing.
Mhm.
And then we do the process and the transaction. So it has to work for both parties.
Right.
And most people are so quick to pay because they just want to get over it, that they don't, then they pay, and now they're in that position that you mentioned where it's not, no one's caring about it. It's been paid and you're still dealing with the headache because you didn't prepare yourself to protect yourself in that process. So never pay anything in collection without getting anything in writing first, that there would be a mutual benefit for the collection agency as well as you. Now, fast forward, you already paid and now you're in that position. Now you have to get a little bit assertive. And then you're going to have to send not only the paid in full letter to the credit mafia, the three credit bureaus. And if they still not taking it off, you want to make sure you have everything documented. I like to send sometimes paperwork like that, with return receipts, in the postal service where you have the green card,
Yeah.
the certified return receipt, because then someone has to sign for the package, and it has a number, and it becomes a legal document because someone has to receive it and sign for the package. You're on a time clock. You're like, well, they received it on such and such date. Now, if within 30 days, which is by law, according to the Consumer Protection Bureau, that they have to respond within a specified period of time. They're the ones that control the credit mafia. So I would say have all of that intact. And then if you feel like they're still not taking it off and it's getting, now you're going to have to contact who regulates them and say, hey, I sent this letter out on such and such date. It
Mhm.
was received by such and such on this time. Nothing has been changed. Nothing has been done. So everything has to be in writing. And that's what's going to help you with getting those things removed quickly.
Right. Well, that is awesome. Now, let me ask you, what about a person that is about to file bankruptcy to
Mhm.
try to get their life together? At what point, I know you mentioned bankruptcy would be a last resort, but at what point do you be like, okay, now we have to file bankruptcy? Does it have to be a certain amount of credit score, or is too many things going on?
Well, again, I'm not an attorney and I can't give legal advice, but we know we have several different bankruptcies that can take place. So depending on what you talk to your attorney, and most of the people that do file bankruptcies are usually clients that have been married, they went through divorces, and they had a lot of things together.
Mhm.
And the other person just took advantage of it, and they were not responsible for the debt, so no one wanted to pay for any of it. So it becomes like a really sticky situation. So then the person's like, well, I'm going to file bankruptcy because I'm not going to be paying for all that debt that's not even mine. So
Mhm.
that's what I see a lot of. And if you feel like you're in that position, we live in a capitalistic society where bankruptcies are it's not something to frown upon. I mean, people do this all day, every day. It's kind of like a reset button. It allows you to rebuild again. So when you're rebuilding, so when you file bankruptcy, depending on which one you file, then you're allowed to reestablish yourself. They're going to start sending you offers for credit cards. One of the things that I do see a lot of that happens after bankruptcies is that some of the debts were not completely removed from the credit report. So then now we have to go back and get whoever the attorney was that did the bankruptcy, the list of the accounts that were included in the bankruptcy, and make the credit bureaus aware that, hey, this was not removed and it was part of the bankruptcy. So please, remove it. So a lot of that I see is like it's not completely clean. Majority of the accounts are, but some of them are not. And depending on the bankruptcy that you decide to go forward with, some of them don't eliminate all the debts. Some of them could be just some of the debts. It all depends what's agreed upon in the bankruptcy. So, but it allows you to start, it allows you to reset, it allows you to start over. So if you feel like you're in that position, you should not feel like, oh, it's the end of the world. I can't believe I'm filing bankruptcy. Just go ahead and move forward and start again, and try not to get yourself in a position where you're in that same place where you have to file bankruptcy. But it's there to give you that opportunity.
And how long does it last, bankruptcy last on your credit report?
They usually last about 7 to 10 years, depending on what it is, and it's going to be there. I mean, if you have like a foreclosure and some certain things that I've seen people that they did that because they had so many things that they could not, and their whole business went upside down. So everyone's in a different position, and I always say it's the last resort. But if you got to do that, it's going to stay on your credit report, but that doesn't mean you can't establish credit. You can still go and start, you can still go buy a home, you can still reestablish credit, and you may have to get a little bit smarter with how you do things, like buying real estate and in an EIN number versus purchasing under your social, learning how to use this capitalistic ways to your advantage. Okay, and that's important.
Very good. Let's change the topic to business credit. Let's talk a little bit more about business credit. How does business credit work and how do you establish it?
And that's also one of the things, like when I survived the last recession, which I survived because it was really, really difficult. I was doing a lot of real estate in New York, and I had went through a lot of setbacks, financial setbacks, which caused me to launch Gold Crown Credit, because even though I come from a mortgage background and I've reviewed a lot of credit reports, I was not really into restoring the credit or advising people about the credit. So what happened was, I myself had real estate that I had a lot of things in my personal name. And after the last recession, and I went through so many setbacks, I didn't file bankruptcy, but I went through a lot of, changes, and I had to like work on my credit, like put that as, I was like obsessed with it. So it got to the point where I was like, what I have learned from this, I've learned that I should not be putting everything in my personal name. How to limit my liabilities for in real life. Like, well, I have to set myself up as a business, even if I don't have a client or I'm not offering a service. I can still set up LLCs and corporations that I can manage.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is important for everyone. Even if you have a 9 to 5, use your 9 to 5 and use your job to invest in an LLC, get it registered with the state that you're living in, open up a business bank account, get your Duns number, which is a Duns and Bradstreet number, and start, it's like having a baby. It's like start nourishing your baby, because that baby's going to take care of you. And there's so many things that you could do with an entity. Not only put real estate into the entity name, you can use all your expenses that you buy stuff with. A lot of people are working from home now, right?
Mhm.
After COVID. So, there's home expenses, and you can run a small business. You could be like, I'm a consultant, and these are the expenses, from the ink, from the paper, even some of the rental expenses that you have. If you're renting, you can cover it as a business expense and write off taxes. And you're gonna have to hire an accountant, but it's worth it, because the amount of benefits that you get as a business. Like, you're managing, like Warren Buffett, he says he doesn't own anything, and if you look it up, he really doesn't. But he manages his empire, his wealth. He manages it, because you can manage your wealth with your entities. You don't have to become the liability and putting everything in your name. And that's another thing that I learned wholeheartedly in the last recession, which I encourage everyone to get an entity established, even if you're not in active business.
I am familiar with Dun and Bradstreet. Could you explain to the audience what Dun and Bradstreet is?
Yes, absolutely. Duns and Bradstreet is DNB. It's a place where you can actually, where they're reporting your business credit information. So your business has a credit score, just like your person does. Like, you have a FICO score, right? And business is called a paydex score. So that score is going to determine where does your business stand with credit. So, having a Duns and Bradstreet number is separate from an EIN, but DNB gives you that number so that it can, that's what it's reporting towards in your business. So your business has a DMB number. It takes about usually 30 days to get it. It's free. It shouldn't cost anything to get a DMB number. But Duns and Bradstreet will try to call you and stress you and email you about selling to you their program to build business credit, which it only pertains, no offense to DMB, but it only gears to the lines of credit that they report. They don't report all lines of credit. So we have Equifax and we also have Experian Business, Equifax Commercial and Duns and Bradstreet. So there's more than one reporting agency for business, and Duns and Bradstreet is just one of them. So we must keep in mind that do the other ones know that I'm in business? Do I have visibility? Does my business profile exist with the others? So it's very important that you have business visibility with Duns and Bradstreet as well as Equifax and Experian. So that's important. So part of our service is that we help businesses have a legitimate profile, and we also help them get, visibility with the proper bureaus that are going to be reporting onto their business credit, which is public information.
Just so well, especially it being public information, because you could also get information also about someone's business from the Better Business Bureau.
Well, you can. A lot of people don't understand that Better Business Bureau, you're just paying to be a part of that. Like anyone could be a part of the Better Business Bureau. It's with a fee. It's not that you're required to be a part of it. It doesn't make you a better business if you're on it or not. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people think like, oh, if I'm on the Better, it's just a service that is provided for people to know anything. But that's not where they don't record credit, business credit, or anything about business, except like if someone didn't like the service or the product and they want to complain or whatever. That's what primarily is used for. But it's not like it's it's not some place where it's accurate information all the time, and it's not reporting anything regarding your credit, your paydex score for your business. So I just want to make that clear, because most people think that Better Business Bureau is like, but it's really like, it's just something that you pay for to be a part of. It's not a requirement.
Right. You mentioned the EIN number. I have an EIN number.
Taxpayer ID.
Yeah. Can you explain to the audience how important it is when you're in business to have an EIN number?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I come across a lot of people that have an EIN number but don't have an LLC. So I'm like, okay, so you have an EIN number, a taxpayer ID number, which you get from the IRS. And you can get that as a sole proprietor without even establishing an entity, which I'm not knocking it. If that's what you're doing, that's fine, but that's not really separating yourself from your business. What you want to do is have personal business and business and separate the two, okay? Because in the last recession, I had everything together, and that's what made things a little bit harder, because now if you have a business and you have things in your personal name, they can come after your personal assets. But if you separate your person from your business, which is very important, then it's going to allow you to separate the two. So having the taxpayer ID number for the business, you should have an LLC or a corporation that's attached to the EIN. So we can call it, like Gold Crown Credit LLC. We have our EIN that's separate from my social security number. That EIN is a 9-digit number, just like your social, your taxpayer ID. That's what we build. We can build business credit just using your EIN without even asking to use your social. A lot of people say, well, how is that? Well, you can, because most people are under the impression that when they get business credit, that they have to, almost all applications are going to have a part where it says, put your personal social security number. But because we do this all day, every day, over and over and over again, we omit that for our clients. We're able to build your business credit and help you build it without using your social and just using your EIN. But it's very critical that you have an LLC and a corporation established before you get the EIN. Because I see people, they be like, oh, I have an EIN. And I'm like, so do you have an LLC? They're like, I don't have that. So they miss that step. That's the first step. Get your entity registered. Make sure the name is available with the state that you're living in. And then once it's been approved and it's been processed and you have your articles of incorporation, then you go get your EIN. You don't get the EIN first, then get the name. That would be backwards.
Okay. So could you explain to the audience that getting an EIN number, how free it is from the IRS? Because a lot of people think you have to pay companies to get an IRS.
Oh
I mean,
no, and
people have paid them. I'm not knocking the companies, but this is some legwork. I always use the term legwork. Legwork you could do on your own.
oh definitely. Like I even did I have an ebook that I have out that helps people learn how to do it on their own, because you can hire companies to establish your entity on your behalf, like LegalZoom is one of them, or you could do it on your own. But that's just establishing the entity, which is the LLC or the corporation. You got to make sure this name is available. So you can go to the Department of State of wherever the state that you're in. So here in Georgia, I would go into the Georgia State Department of State website, and then I'll find out if the name is available. If my name is available, then I'm able to reserve it. Then I gotta wait like about 7 business days, 7 to 10 business days, and they're gonna tell me, okay, the name is it's available. You can take the name and use the name. Then now I have to register it and process the LLC. So if that's a lot, and I understand some people are not that savvy on their computers, and that's okay. Then you hire a LegalZoom. Now, if you do it on your own and you establish your own entity through the process of the State Department of State website, then you go into irs.gov. There are companies, if you go online and you do EIN, you're gonna see other, if it doesn't say gov, like from the government, then you know that it's a third party, because they will charge you to do it for you. I mean, is like you said, it's not knocking the company. I mean, they're providing a service, but they're not really necessary. There are some questions in the irs.gov website about the EIN, like what is the entity that is established? What kind of business is it? They do ask for the social security number of the person, or whoever the agent is that's processing the documentation for that entity to get the taxpayer ID number. So after the Patriot Act, they always ask that information. But you could, if you have like a holdings company, you can put another EIN of another holdings company in that process. Okay.
Oh, wow. That is so very good that you brought all of that up, because a lot of people are trying to do so much in this pandemic. And the worst thing you could do is waste money right now, money that you don't have, because so much is going on. Everybody is either out of a job or trying to establish business, and it costs money to make money. But if you could do the additional things on your own, that would be great. And that is why I have the chat up, so they could see your information and so that they could contact you.
I'm about to put up the information about the where they can go to pull their credit. IdentityIQ.com is usually where I advise my clients to go, because it's such a easy it's easy to read, and it allows you to see even check systems. Like some people are not able to get bank accounts opened, and it's because they either had the way they're being reported in check system, which is CHEX. Checks systems is a negative thing. So you want to make sure that you're looking to see that you're getting that you're able to see what is being reported on your behalf.
Right.
That's very important. That's with check systems, with LexisNexis, because again, a lot of the credit mafia, where they're getting their information from, is from these companies. LexisNexis, there's other companies that are behind the scenes that are doing the research, the search in your name. Everything's like connected. So they'll be able to see, SaveStream, check systems, what they're reporting on your name. So it's important to get all your data, because you also can suppress it. And that's where a lot of power comes from when you're doing credit restoration on your own, because you could say, well, I never authorized this information, or this information is not correct. And it's up to you to get this data from these companies, because you don't know what they're reporting. It could be information that's not even correct about you. It could be someone that has kind of the similar name like you. I've seen that a lot. Name variations that are similar. Some of that stuff overlaps into your stuff. And that could be critical, because then now you're trying to move forward and you're like, well, why can't I open up a bank account? Why can't I get credit? Well, there's things that are being reported on your behalf that you have no idea of, that you should know.
Okay. How often should you check your credit report?
Well, I have a monitoring service. If you notice, I just put it up there. It's Identity IQ. Even I have it, and I pay. It's like a bit between 20 and 30 bucks a month, where you can have, searches can range from just the three credit bureaus or all the companies I was mentioning. So it's important to have. I mean, we spend money like that on other things that are not beneficial to us, but to have a monitoring service to be able to check your credit every update every 30 days. If anything is being reported, they can know. You get a notification by email, through text, depending how you set up your monitoring service. But it's important to invest in yourself like that. They do have it where you can check it for like $1 for 7 days, where you don't keep the service and you kind of get a report, but that's only going to give you that report for that moment, for that time frame.
Oh, wow. As far as your credit, your business credit, since we're talking about business credit now, what credit cards would you advise to apply for your business credit?
Well, right, like I was mentioning before we got on the recording, that, with a lot of fintech companies coming out now, they're making the process of building business credit a little bit easier, but you still have to have, if it's a new business, then it's really not that easy, because you have to have a bank account
Mhm.
that's been showing that you've been, accepting income and expenses, and managing that bank account for your business, to be able to get some of the funding and lines of credit that they're offering right off the bat. But if you're like a new business owner, a lot of the, besides the business profile and making sure that it looks legit, with one of the accounts that we advise clients to get is Quill. Quill is one of them, and Granger. I'm gonna put it in here. And these are like companies that they sell like wholesale stuff, like file cabinets, ink, uh, pens, like paper towels, like whatever you have, like, and you'll just buy it from there in the business name. You want to spend more than $50, at least $50 or more, and pay it off right away. This is how you build business credit without using your social. Well, when you work with us, we make sure that we don't put your social security number on it. But they may, I've had clients that said, well, I went to them and I did put my social. And I'm like, well, because you didn't know that you didn't have to. But so what you're doing here is just using your EIN number to get these accounts established for your business. And then you're going to buy one thing from them, or two things, $50 or more. And the key and the whole thing about building business credit is that you're paying this right back, like immediately. Like, so let's say we order from Quill today in the business name. That means in like 5 to 7 business days, I'm paying this back right away. Like, I'm not even waiting until they send me the statement. I'm paying it off right away, because that is how you build business credit. So we start with 5 to 7 vendors. I just gave you 2. And then we move our way. Then we move our way from there. Then we go 5 to 7. Then we move on to revolving credit, and then those other accounts, like I mentioned, like let's say you have a business and you've been accepting income and stuff like that in your business bank account, but you never established business credit. Then there's other programs that I can recommend, because you already have, activity with your income, with your business. So everyone's in a different position. We've helped so many people. Like, when we do business funding, for example,
Mhm.
it's part of building business credit. But with business funding, you're leveraging your personal credit. Okay, so you have to have 680 FICO or higher on all 3 credit bureaus. You can't have too many inquiries, which is keep pulling your credit. They don't like that. So you could have a 700 FICO, but if you're getting your credit pulled all the time, those are called inquiries.
Mhm.
That's considered a negative impact on your personal credit. Okay, and banks are going to frown upon that. They're not going to say, oh, I'm going to give her, they're going to say, wait a minute, we can't move forward because you have so many inquiries. You got to
Those
remember.
are hard inquiries, aren't they?
It
Those are considered hard inquiries.
Right. The hard inquiries would be like if you go buy a car. When you go to a dealership, most of the time they ran you through so many banks. By the time you pull your credit, you got like 7 inquiries, and you're like, wait a minute, we only went to one dealer. Yeah, but that one dealership shopped you around with everyone. So those inquiries are very critical. So you have to refrain from trying to get your credit pulled at all times. Now, if you're buying a house, they're kind of they allow you to go and shop around. You don't want to go to more than 3 lenders, but you got to be careful with I going to Macy's and going to get your credit pulled. And the next day you go somewhere else and get the credit. Like you got to like refrain from doing that. Okay. Because they're going to frown upon you. Like, wait a minute, what is this? They have great, like I have a guy, he got 715. You'll be like, well, he got great credit, but he got 18 inquiries. So
Wow.
you can challenge those inquiries, and you, especially the ones that you didn't get credit for. So if they pulled your credit and you didn't get credit, then I say challenge those inquiries. Why not? And have some of them have a time frame when they fall off. But when we do business funding, it has to be no more than 6 inquiries within the last 6 months. You got to have a 680 FICO or higher. And you have to have large lines of credit, like I was mentioning before, $1,000, $2,000 for at least 12 or 24 months. So you can personal guarantee, okay, personal guarantee your business funding through your personal credit, but it will not be reporting on your personal credit.
Right.
Okay, so you'll be able to get lines of credit fast. Like let's say you just started the business and you have 680 FICO higher, you meet the terms and the requirements. We'll get you business funding. We could get you up to 150,000 on a new business
Mhm.
without even looking at a tax return for your business or profit and loss statement. It's just that simple. But it has to have a 680 FICO or higher. Now, let's say you're the business owner and your credit's not up to par, but you have a spouse or you have a partner, a joint venture, someone that you can work with that has those that has that credit requirement. You can use them as your credit partner for your business to get funding.
Mhm. Wow. You see, and a lot of people don't know how to do that because they have never been explained to them. And that's why we have you. We have you here to explain it to everyone and they could come to you and get it right the first time around. Because I believe people have paid a lot of money trying to get their credit right, trying to do the business right. And if you spend more money paying someone that get it half done, because there's a lot of things you mentioned. There's a lot of things that could be missed in bankruptcy. There's a lot of things could be missing when you pay people to get stuff done. And hard inquiries, I believe, stay on your credit report for about 6 months to a year, correct?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we're able to just remove them right off because we use like I don't dispute. Like most people like, well, what do you mean you don't dispute? Like we challenge and we're dealing with I deal with compliance
Mhm.
versus disputing, oh, that's not my account. Oh, yes, it is your account. Like you're just gonna be chasing your tail.
Right.
So we use a different type of approach, which seems to be more effective because we're dealing with compliance, and there's a lot of violations with compliance.
Mhm.
So um, inquiries could go against violations of compliance, especially if you notice, or if let's say accounts that are reporting, let's say everything is reporting perfectly with Experian, but when we look at the way TransUnion is reporting it like not the same. That's a like a conflict of reporting two different agencies reporting the same account differently. That's a
Right.
compliance issue. If we have like medical collections goes against HIPAA violations, and these HIPAA violations can go in your favor because if you're in violation, then guess what? Then that is something that you can raise as a problem and as something that's going against you, and you can get those removed. So a lot of the times, to be honest, they don't want the smoke. Like they say, they don't want the smoke. These credit mafias, they're like, wait a
Right.
minute, I'm gonna take you to court. Like you gotta be willing to put your gloves on. If you're willing to fight the fight,
Right.
and have a file, have a process, like make sure that our file has, well, we reached out to them on such and such date. They
Mhm.
didn't respond. We want to have a trail before we get to that point. But
Right.
you got to be willing, ready, and able to fight because this is your true pursuit of happiness. Like you trying to get funding or trying to get a property and getting some type of funding or be considered, and someone's, reporting negatively against you, that's like a war against you. So it's like you really have to take that seriously and not be afraid to fight against something that's going against you, that's impacting your livelihood.
You know what? A lot of people, I'm sorry, the sun is coming through the window. A lot of people do not want to fight. A lot of people just sit down and just take stuff as it is and just, oh, I'll deal with it some other time. You have to fight for everything in life. Nothing you can, oh, I don't want to be bothered with. Because what's happened is when you're ready to get your life together and get things together, you have so much more to clean up now. So
Yeah, I think that we also need like accountability partners too, because sometimes when you're doing it by yourself, it gets a little tedious, and sometimes you're like, oh, I got the letter, they're not trying to budge, and you gotta really like you. It gets, some of my clients get like that. They're like, oh, so what's gonna happen next? And I'm like, just be patient and just fight the fight. Like you need to trust the process. You need to go all out and already have the light at the end of the tunnel. Like this is where I'm headed, and I'm not gonna take no for an answer, especially if something is from so old, like and then they keep, because there's statute of limitations in different states, so let's say you had something that went in collection, then it was sold to another third party, then another one, then this one. You like, so many different companies are reporting the same debt over and over, and somewhere along the line it could be a violation against you because there's statute of limitations. So if you talk to them on the phone and they be like, hey Christy, you know so you had this debt with AT&T or Sprint, and now we have the debt, so what's good? And then if you speak to them, now you've already created a verbal contract with them. Now that statute of limitation was already about to expire, but that's when they call you to see if they could get a hold of you. Now they started again, the clock starts again, another 7 years. You're like, but if you that's why I say don't talk to anybody on the phone. All right. And if they call you and they're harassing you, we provide cease and desist letters where they have to refrain from calling you and harassing your job, your mother's house, your cousin's house. You're like, yo, they just called you for this debt. You're like, what? They calling your house too? Like, yes, they do stuff like that. And I got a client, he got like almost $20,000 one time because we did the cease and desist letter, and they kept calling afterwards. So that's $1,000 per call.
wow.
$1,000 per call. So they ended up having to pay him triple the amount that he owed them for the collections that they kept harassing him on. So you have to keep records of this stuff and not be afraid, but don't be talking to them and say, okay, I took care of it. This is what I always tell my clients. And this is an advice for you guys. So if they're calling you like, hey, Chrissy, you owe us this debt, whatever, you be like, oh, I took care of it. What is your name? Let me send you the fax of what I'm referring to. What's your name? They give you your name. What is the fax number? You standing by this fax machine right now? Okay. And what's your, and what's the, all the information. So now we got all that information. We're going to fax them over the cease and desist letter and also send a certified mail return receipt. So now we have records and proof that that's been done. So any calls after that, it's a violation, $1,000.
A lot of people don't know that. And
Yes.
it's bad right now because a lot of people is unemployed. A lot of people is going through much. A lot of people are trying to negotiate. Some creditors don't want to negotiate. They
don't have a choice because according to the laws in place, they're being real lenient with people during this time, during post-COVID. Now, I do want people to get into, I know people are going through setbacks, but this is a great time to connect with yourself and your ideas and your creativity. This is the time where we've been given to be able to come out with whatever it is that's been inside of your spirit that you're like, oh, should I do it now? Come out and do it. Like, this is the time, because it's like, it's not a great time for some people, but it's a magnificent time for a lot of people because you're able to tap into your own being self-sufficient, being creative, bringing out whatever that's inside of you, that burning sensation that's like, I got to make this happen, but I don't know what to do, or start that YouTube channel that you've been wanting to start. Like, this is the time to do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, get it. Like, you have so much inside of you that wants to come out, but you are your own worst enemy. You know what I'm saying? I see that a lot. So come on, guys.
You know, we have about 6 more minutes. We have audience on. At this time, I would like anyone to unmute yourself if you would like to ask any questions. The contact information is in the chat, along with websites of different things.
That's Identity IQ. And there was something else that I was gonna, oh yeah, the new codes. Let me get that so that I can, this is just, usually this is some of the information I give my clients to build their business, to build their personal credit. And this one is the one that's gonna give you the $5,000, it's gonna give you the $5,000 line of credit.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Who am I speaking with?
Christy.
Hi, Christy. Welcome.
Hi, I have a quick question. I was on the go and I missed a good chunk, but I'll connect with Dalle because I'm already in connection with her. But I'm glad to be on the conference call. So I have a quick question. So I have some student loan debt, and I had called the federal loan provider sometime, I think, between, I think, August or September.
Mhm.
And obviously, I'm pretty sure you guys know that something's on hold in terms of people paying off their loans monthly or whatever. So I called just to see, just to get. I've been in forbearance for some time, so I never been in default. I plan on going back to school, so I'm in a situation where I have the opportunity. I created the opportunity in my head, but I want to see what the loan provider would say in regards to there's smaller loans that I have with the lump sum, and I want to pay a good chunk. I just want to hear from Daly to see if that would be a good idea. I wanted to pay a little under 3,000 before the, January 1st. Before, because I don't know what's going to happen. We all don't know what's going to happen in terms of January 1st, in terms of what the financial services would say in terms of, okay, now this is due, that's due. Um, I want to stay ahead of the game. So I want to be financially responsible. So
Okay. So you're saying that this is the amount of money you're trying to pay towards your student loan?
yes.
And what
And
is the
I don't owe much, which is good. I took a detour with school and everything. So, but I want to alleviate some of the debt is where I'm at right now.
Okay, now, and do you have any other plans? Like, do you have a business? Or the reason why I'm asking this is because the student loan is one of the lowest interest rates that you're paying out of any loan in your whole entire life, right? I'm
Okay.
not saying not to pay it, but if you have a business idea or something that you're trying to create more income, I'd rather that you not use all that money and give it to the student loan and use
Okay.
some of that money to reinvest it in something that's going to bring you more money back. That's something
Yeah.
to think
So
about.
I have, okay. Yeah. And I do have a business idea that I am part of this group that I'm going to be pitching my 4 minute business thing on the Tuesday night. It's a small program that I'm taking in my spare time during the pandemic. So I wanted to create a t-shirt business. I think with all my lists that I said to myself like, oh wow, like this is where I can start right now. So yeah, but I guess when that starts, I'll be in contact with you and go from
Yeah, I
there.
think that is a great idea. I think that yes, it's good to eliminate the debt, but if you're gonna have, if you have $3,000, which is a big amount of cash, I would not just give
Right.
it all to the student loan. I would say, let me, let me work, let me still pay them all when they start charging you, start paying them
Okay.
monthly, and then take some of that money and say, let me invest it in my business because that's gonna bring you more money, which is what you're trying to do, generate income, not stay completely with nothing and pay and not have no debt, but then you don't have, what are you working with? You see what I'm saying? Like
Right. Right.
something to think about. I'm, however you choose to go, but I always encourage people to use some of the funds that they have to reinvest in something that's going to bring them a higher return or something that's going to generate income.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that have any more questions? You could unmute yourself.
No, I'm just actually here listening in. I don't have any specific questions at the moment, but if I do, I'll just directly reach out to Dally. So I appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. I like this. This is giving me vibes of we should have like a women's group or something.
Yes, yes, we should. Thank you so much for being on Sharon King Worldwide. Now, Dali, please let the audience know where they could find you with your business and on social media.
Definitely. It's Gold Crown Credit LLC. I have a Gold Crown Credit Facebook page. You can email me at goldcrowncredit@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you can contact me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Also follow me at Gold Crown Credit. And I put the number in the chat, 844-244-8144. I'm at extension 1. And any questions you may have, any help that I can give you, please feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate you guys.
You're very welcome. And I thank you so much. I love you. I've known you for many years on Facebook and everything else.
I bought your book. She has a great book.
That's right. That's right. I did buy my book. Oh my God. Thank you so much. And I will be reaching out to you on certain things, Sally. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from you being on this session. And I'm looking forward for future business working together. I am Sharon May King, and this is Sharon King Worldwide. I want to thank everyone that logged on today. Dalle information is in the chat. I do have the chat up. You can write her information down. This will be posted also on my social media. And thank you so much, Dalle. I wish you guys the best of luck, and I will be contacting you, like I said, Dalle. And thank you so much. Have a great day and a blessed day, everyone. We will be logging off now. Thank you.